2023, a single seismic station in the Ural Mountains registered a 4.7 magnitude event. It lasted for exactly 1 second. Then, silence. No other station on Earth felt it. Not in Europe, not in Asia. It was a phantom tremor, an impossible signal that originated and died within a few square kilometers of ancient rock. This is the story of that rock. For centuries, locals have called it Diadya, the uncle, a vast iron-rich formation in the remote northern Urals that bears an uncanny resemblance to a human face. You've seen faces in clouds, of course. This is different. This one has cheekbones the size of city blocks, a brow ridge that casts a shadow for a kilometer. It's been there for millennia, a silent geological curiosity. Or so we thought. Declassified Soviet geological surveys from 1972 show something else. The geologist field notes mention erratic magnetic flux and unexplained low-frequency resonance. Their final report was buried for 50 years. The official explanation was instrument malfunction. But think about that. Why classify a technical error as a state secret? The formation itself is primarily hematite and magnetite. These are iron oxides. You are looking at a mountain of rust and magnets. Highly unusual, but not impossible in the mineral-rich Urals. And here's where it gets interesting. That 4.7 tremor, it wasn't a random shake. Seismologists who analyzed the waveform saw it was a single, clean pulse. Not the chaotic rumble of an earthquake, more like a heartbeat. One beat, then nothing. 3 weeks later, a French commercial satellite, Pleiades Neo, was making a routine pass overhead. Its high-resolution cameras captured an image at 11:03 a.m. local time. The image was automatically flagged by an analysis program for an atmospheric anomaly. But the anomaly wasn't in the atmosphere. It was on the ground. A single, blinding flash of light, just pixels across, originating from the exact coordinates of the formation's left eye. The official report from the satellite operator called it a specular reflection, sunlight glinting off a wet rock surface. A simple, rational explanation. Except for one detail they left out. The satellite image was taken at night. Rational explanation, they said. Except for one detail they left out. The satellite image was taken at night. How does sunlight glint off a wet rock surface when the sun is nowhere to be seen? This question, once whispered in closed circles, now demands an answer. You see, the Pleiades Neo satellite operates in a low Earth orbit, passing over the Urals in complete darkness during that specific time on June 4th. Its sensors are designed to capture faint reflected light, not direct solar flares. So, what did it see? Dr. Eris Thorne, a former optical engineer for the European Space Agency, was the first to publicly challenge the official narrative. He analyzed the raw data. He found no evidence of atmospheric interference, no cloud cover, nothing to explain a specular reflection in total darkness. Think about that. A light source, from deep within the mountain. Thorne presented his findings at a small independent symposium in Geneva in late 2023. His presentation was titled Anomalous Luminescence Event, Ural Mountain Formation. What he showed was a single powerful burst of light. It lasted less than a millisecond. It was focused, like a beam. The energy output, according to Thorne's calculations, was equivalent to a small lightning strike. But underground, or rather, from within the mountain itself. The official report from the satellite operator called it a data glitch, a pixel error. Yet this glitch occurred precisely at the coordinates of the left eye of Diadya. That's a coincidence too perfect to ignore. And here's where it gets interesting. Dr. Thorne wasn't the only one investigating. A Russian independent research group, calling themselves Ural Echo, had been monitoring Diadya for years. They compiled local folklore, geological surveys, and even old military reports. Their findings, largely dismissed by official channels, paint a different picture. They document multiple instances of what they call localized atmospheric disturbances around Diadya. These were often accompanied by strange electromagnetic fluctuations. Their most compelling evidence comes from a former Soviet meteorologist, Svetlana Petrova. In 1988, while stationed at a remote weather outpost near Diadya, Petrova recorded unusual phenomena. Her logs, recently declassified, describe sudden localized temperature spikes and unexplained atmospheric ionization directly above the formation. These events always occurred at night. Always. You have to wonder why this information remained hidden for so long. The Soviet Union had a deep interest in anything unusual in its vast territories, especially things with potential military applications. Petrova's reports were filed, reviewed, and then vanished, until Ural Echo found them in a dusty archive. The official explanation for Petrova's observations was faulty equipment, old Soviet technology, they said. But Petrova meticulously calibrated her instruments. Her handwritten notes are filled with precise measurements and cross-references. She was a professional. She knew her equipment. What if her equipment was working perfectly? What if it was accurately recording something impossible? The idea of a mountain generating light or even heat seems absurd. Yet the evidence mounts. The 4.7 magnitude tremor, a single pulse. The nighttime flash from the satellite. The historical records of atmospheric disturbances. None of these are isolated incidents anymore. They form a pattern of activity. The formation itself, primarily hematite and magnetite, is not known for generating light. These are inert minerals. But what if the minerals are not the source? What if they are merely a shell? The iron face has been silent for millennia, a geological curiosity, but something has changed. Something is stirring within its depths. The question is no longer if something is happening, but what is causing it? And what happens next? What could possibly cause such distinct, powerful events from deep within a mountain that has been considered nothing more than rock for human history? Powerful events from deep within a mountain considered nothing more than rock for human history. The official answer remains steadfast: natural phenomena. But the evidence, when examined closely, paints a far more unsettling picture. You see, the 4.7 magnitude tremor from May 14, 2023 was just the beginning. Dr. Eris Thorne's analysis of the Pleiades NEO satellite data revealed something else that was completely overlooked. He discovered a secondary, much fainter energy signature emanating from the mountain. It followed the initial light burst. It was a microwave emission, short, powerful, and entirely artificial in its wavelength. This data was suppressed. Why? The Russian independent research group, Ural Echo, has since corroborated Thorne's findings. They used ground-based microwave detectors, specifically designed for atmospheric research. Their equipment, deployed secretly in the Urals, picked up similar signals. Not just once, but repeatedly. These signals were always localized to the Diadya Formation. They occurred at irregular intervals, sometimes days apart, sometimes weeks. And here's the part nobody talks about. The frequencies detected by Ural Echo are eerily similar to those used in active denial systems. These systems use directed energy to create a burning sensation on human skin. Non-lethal, but undeniably a weapon. Think about what that means. A mountain, generating directed energy. Who built it, and why? The geological surveys from 1972, those buried Soviet documents, described unexplained low-frequency resonance. We now understand this was not a malfunction. It was a consistent, measurable hum. A hum that has persisted for decades. It suggests an internal mechanism, an engine. But what kind of engine could operate deep within solid rock for so long? And where does it get its power? The sheer scale of the Diadya Formation is staggering. It is not just a hill, it is a mountain range. The face itself is miles across. Any internal structure would need to be colossal. The Soviet geologists, in their original field notes, recorded anomalous heat signatures deep within the formation. These were dismissed as geothermal activity. But the pattern of the heat was not random. It was concentrated, focused, like a furnace or a reactor. Dr. Elena Petrova, a retired geophysicist from St. Petersburg University, recently reviewed these Soviet-era reports. She points out a critical detail. The heat anomalies were not static. They shifted. They moved over months. This is not typical geothermal activity. Geothermal hotspots are fixed. They don't wander. So, what was moving inside? The official narrative insists on inert rock, but the facts contradict this. A moving heat source, directed microwave energy, a single, powerful tremor. These are the hallmarks of something controlled, something alive, and the implications are terrifying. What if the iron face is not merely a geological formation? What if it is a construct, an ancient machine buried for millennia, nowly reawakening? The local folklore, often dismissed as superstition, tells of the sleeping giant. Tales passed down through generations, stories of the mountain rumbling, of lights in the night sky above it, of animals avoiding its shadow. These are not isolated anecdotes. They are consistent accounts, spanning centuries. You have to ask yourself, how much of this folklore is based on actual observations? And how much did the Soviet authorities know? 3 documents were declassified in 2019. What they contained, the Russian government has never acknowledged. These documents describe a series of unexplainable disappearances in the immediate vicinity of Dyadya in the late 1960s. Not 1 or 2, but dozens. People simply vanished. No trace, no bodies. The official explanation was animal attacks, but the numbers don't add up. Wolves do not take entire families. Bears do not leave no physical evidence. These incidents stopped abruptly in 1972. The same year, the Soviet geological surveys were completed, and the reports were buried. Coincidence or cover-up? The silence from official channels is deafening. No further research, no public statements about the anomalous data, just a quiet dismissal. But the mountain continues to hum. The signals continue to pulse. And you are left with a chilling question. If the mountain is indeed a machine, who built it? And what happens when it fully awakens? Who built it? And what happens when it fully awakens? These questions lingered, a silent dread in the minds of those who knew the truth. But for the people living in the shadow of Dyadya, the changes were not theoretical. They were visceral. In the small village of Nizhnyaya, just 15 kilometers from the formation, something began to shift. The elderly, those who remembered the old tales, spoke of a growing unease. Their sleep was disturbed. Animals behaved strangely. What do you think that means for a community whose very existence is tied to the land? The official reports, of course, dismissed these concerns as superstition. But try telling that to Ivan Volkov, a 68-year-old reindeer herder. For generations, his family's herds roamed the slopes of Dyadya. Then, in July 2023, his lead reindeer, a magnificent stag named Boar, refused to approach the mountain. Boar, who had always led the herd, simply stopped. He stood, trembling, staring towards the face in the distance. Ivan tried to coax him, but the animal wouldn't move. He had never seen such fear in his animals. This was not a wolf. This was something else. Ivan lost 30% of his herd that summer, not to predators, but to starvation, because they refused to graze on the richest pastures near the mountain. You're talking about a man's entire livelihood. The local authorities offered no explanation, no compensation, just a shrug. This wasn't just about animals. The mountain itself seemed to be breathing. Locals reported a low, rhythmic thrumming sound. It was subtle at first, barely perceptible, but it grew louder, deeper. It vibrated through the ground, through their homes. Imagine trying to sleep when the very earth beneath you pulses with an unknown rhythm. Dr. Thorne, working with Ural Echo, deployed a network of low-frequency acoustic sensors around Dyadya in August 2023. His data confirmed the villagers' accounts. The mountain was indeed emitting a consistent, subaudible hum. Its frequency matched the low-frequency resonance noted in those declassified Soviet reports from 1972. This was not random. It was a pattern, a signature. And here's where it gets interesting. The hum wasn't constant. It had peaks and troughs. It seemed to respond. To what? That's the chilling question. The official explanation for the hum? Wind in the rock formations, a natural phenomenon. But Thorne's sensors recorded the hum even on windless days, and the pattern of its oscillations was too regular, too deliberate to be random. Wind doesn't pulse with such precision. The people of Nizhnaya began to experience other strange phenomena. Electronics would malfunction. Radios would crackle with static. Car engines would sputter and die, only to restart minutes later without explanation. Olga Petrova, a schoolteacher, described her television flickering wildly one evening in September. The screen went blank. Then, for a split second, it showed a jumbled pattern of static unlike anything she had ever seen. A brief, chaotic burst of data. Then, back to black. It was like the mountain itself was trying to communicate. Or perhaps, just interfering. The Russian government, in a rare public statement in October 2023, announced a temporary exclusion zone around Dyadya, citing geological instability. They deployed military personnel, not scientists, not geologists, soldiers. Think about what that implies. If it's just geological instability, why send armed guards? The official narrative is often a smokescreen. The real story is always in what they try to hide. The exclusion zone extended for 30 kilometers in every direction. It effectively cut off Nizhnaya from the outside world. The villagers were trapped, or protected. They didn't know. The soldiers offered no answers, just orders. Their faces were grim. Their weapons were loaded. You have to wonder what they were told to expect. What kind of geological instability requires this level of military presence? The silence from official channels was deafening. No further research. No public statements about the anomalous data. Just a quiet dismissal. But the mountain continued to hum. The signals continued to pulse. The people of Nizhnaya, like Ivan Volkov and Olga Petrova, were caught in the middle. They were the first to feel its stirrings, the first to witness its awakening. And they were terrified, because they understood with a primal certainty that this was not just a mountain anymore. It was something else entirely. And it was alive. What happens when something so ancient, so powerful, begins to truly wake up? What will it demand? And what will it do to the world that has forgotten it for so long? Our first instinct, born from a history of conflict, is to expect a threat. But in the winter of 2023, the story of Dyadya took a turn that no one predicted. The weapon-like microwave bursts, they simply stopped. In their place, something else began. Dr. Eris Thorne, analyzing the new data streams from Ural Echo's hidden sensors, found a signal of breathtaking complexity. It was no longer a pulse. It was a sequence. Think about that. Not a random burst of energy, but a structured, repeating pattern broadcast from the heart of a mountain. The signal contained prime numbers: 2, 3, 5, 7, 11. On and on, a clear, unmistakable beacon in the universal language of mathematics. This was not an act of aggression. It was an introduction. And yet, the official story from behind the military cordon remained the same. Silence. The exclusion zone is still in place. The soldiers are still there. But the narrative of geological instability now seems utterly absurd. Why deploy an army to watch over a math lesson? And here's the part that changes everything. The low-frequency hum, the one the villagers in Nizhnaya felt in their bones, it synchronized with the new signal. The entire mountain, all that hematite and magnetite, began to resonate in perfect harmony with the prime number sequence. It became a colossal transmitter, an instrument the size of a city, playing a song of pure logic. What you are looking at is not just a geological formation anymore. It is a form of life. just not a biological one. It operates on a timescale we can barely comprehend. A single thought for it might span a century of our time. Its awakening was not a single event, it was a process, one that may have started long before our satellites ever noticed the first flash of light. The data from Ural Echo was inevitably leaked. It spread through the global scientific community not as a threat, but as a revelation. Astronomers who had spent their lives searching for extraterrestrial intelligence turned their antennas away from the stars and pointed them towards the ground, towards the Urals. We have spent our entire existence as a species looking up, shouting into the cosmic darkness, asking the same question, are we alone? We sent probes to Mars. We aimed telescopes at galaxies millions of light-years away. We built vast arrays to listen for the faintest whisper from a distant world. And all that time, something was sleeping right here, beneath our feet. A silent, patient intelligence, encased in stone and iron. It has seen ice ages come and go. It has watched empires rise and crumble to dust. Now, it has spoken its first word, in a language we cannot mistake.